The Mescalero Apache were the caretakers of this land and forest. About 40 years after the Apache lost this land, it was likely human mistakes that started the devastating Lincoln National Forest fires. All hands were called to extinguish the flames, including
fires in California due to climate change.
The state's deadliest fire in history, and that California needs to learn to adapt.
You see, traditional stewardship of lands and resources is now discussed in Western science as traditional ecological knowledge.
Following generations. The environmental impact of famines has made starvation genes starvation adapted, which makes them more prone to diabetes and other diseases. Surviving just one famine nearly doubles the risk of diabetes in the next generation.
A march to defend the Amazon rainforest, a place many of these protesters call home. In Brasilia, thousands of tribal leaders from across Brazil have convened for a week-long demonstration.
Back before we was Captain America, black wasn't a race. Africans came from different nations, like in Ndongo, where Queen Nzinga reigned. Indigenous were the same, Powhatan, Doeg. Regardless of tribe, melanin didn't determine fate.
Cut. The family questioned why Genesis was singled out when other students with modifications to their caps were not. Farmington Municipal School told APTN News students were informed throughout the year that caps and gowns may not be all.
Says a report from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority appears to show the toll readers don't recognize Cherokee tribal plates.
I just called this morning, and the Cherokee plate balance is $5.63 million.
It said the state should take responsibility for installing toll readers that can't access tribal data for billing and calls it a separate problem. Now saying in part, quote, clearly Governor Stitt is using his Friday press briefings as political attacks to secure a Cherokee nation. Governor Kevin Stitt claims the state has lost a total of $60 million in the last decade because of Cherokee tribal plate holders using turnpikes. We asked his office for more clarification on that, but didn't get an answer.
As of yesterday, Governor Kristi Noem facing a ban from all 9 of South Dakota's tribal communities. With Andrew Santee Sioux tribe becoming the final tribe to bar the governor.
In continuing coverage, this latest ban comes on the heels of a news conference in Pierre, where the governor...
After the state shut down the Mauna Kea access road during protests in 2019, Native Hawaiian beneficiaries sued the state for unlawfully claiming control over the road. This week, the Supreme Court ruled that the state, including the Department of Transportation, breached...
It would be difficult to, in one budget cycle, undo 400 years of institutionalized racism in a police department.
What's the future of the Seattle Police Department in your eyes? What should it look like?
We have asked police to solve
from the legacy of environmental injustice, injustice against black farmers, challenges we've seen even on things as simple as who had opportunities to get Social Security or homestead land grants.
Though the clause cannot be legally enforced today, the language is still in the original deed. It specifically states that the property is not to be sold to any Asiatic, Ethiopian, Mongolian, or any person who is not white or Caucasian.
Restrictive covenants are often put in place by the developer of a neighborhood or subdivision to ensure that all the members of that community can peaceably enjoy their own properties without undue interference from a neighbor. For example,
Andrew Santee Sioux tribe becoming the final tribe to bar the governor.
In continuing coverage, this latest ban comes on the heels of a news conference in Pierre, where the governor...
When those police forces and their Bearcats and their LRADs and their Humvees begin to ascend Last Child's Hill and arrest us. Morton County.
Governor Kevin Stitt claims the state has lost a total of $60 million in the last decade because of Cherokee tribal plate holders using turnpikes. We asked his office for more clarification on that, but didn't get an answer.
Tohono O'odham tribe says sacred burial sites were blown up for border wall construction.
You can see the controlled blasts in this video. Now members of the Tohono O'odham tribe are outraged. They're protesting in Aho, near the Border Patrol station on...
Just footsteps east of a cross-border bridge between San Diego and Tijuana lies another cross-border construction, one that runs under instead of over the border fence. This is an exit to a drug tunnel. Cartels built it to smuggle things like pot and...
After the state shut down the Mauna Kea access road during protests in 2019, Native Hawaiian beneficiaries sued the state for unlawfully claiming control over the road. This week, the Supreme Court ruled that the state, including the Department of Transportation, breached...
I beg forgiveness, feeling shame for all the times we have given doctrinal justification to inhuman treatment. I ask forgiveness, feeling shame for when we have not been credible.
Texas is out of water.
Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller is stressing this emergency.
We can't grow, we can't expand, we can't have economic opportunity and jobs without water. And we reached our limit. There is no more. So we've got to do some things different.
When Kuhio proposed the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, he wanted 1/32nd Hawaiian as the quantum. Not because he wanted 1/32nd, because for him it wasn't an issue. A Hawaiian is a Hawaiian.
9614 will reduce the blood quantum requirement to Delegate Kuhio's original intent of 1/32nd for the successors that have, while also addressing the inequity of those that don't have. Madam Speaker, I'm confident that if we do that...
Some tribal constitutions require members to have 1/4 or more blood quantum from their specific nation. If someone's blood quantum is lower than 1/4, they are not eligible to become a citizen. You might be wondering about the origins of blood quantum. White settlers imposed blood quantum as a way to limit the rights of Native people. Later, the federal government used blood quantum as a way to break up Native lands into individual plots. They mentioned that blood quantum has non-indigenous roots and constrained families. The most important thing to know about blood quantum: Native nations are sovereign, independent nations. They have the final say when it comes to decisions about blood quantum and citizenship.
Their own legal requirements for citizenship, and while DNA tests can be used to determine lineage, such as paternity to an individual, it is not evidence for tribal affiliation. Using a DNA test
on Tuesday by the Goldwater Institute, arguing that preferences given to American Indian families to adopt Indian children is unconstitutional and discriminates based on race.
It's a way for these industries, these very powerful industries, to try to attack what Indian identity is.
Dubbed People versus Fossil Fuels. On Thursday, Indigenous activists occupied the Bureau of Indian Affairs for the first time since the 1970s. Indigenous leaders issued a series of demands, including the abolition of the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
It's different from Puerto Rico and other incorporated U.S. territories. People born in incorporated territories are automatically American citizens and have voting rights. In unincorporated territories, like American Samoa, Alaska's elections director Carol Beecher saying in a statement, non-citizen U.S. nationals are not eligible to register or vote. But pointing to them, she says she's not guilty.
And the fact that they came out just for us, it really did hit home that we're being discriminated. Even though we do help with the economy growth in here of Whittier.
President Trump's agenda. This is the agenda for the entire country. We have school choice. We have merit pay.
So you're telling me that the Biden administration, on behalf of the U.S. government, apologized for Indian boarding schools, which created the same kind of rhetoric, but you want to continue the boarding schools mindset for public school now, even though you just apologized to the First Nation people? Why don't you rescind the actions of the doctrine of discovery and stop continuing the erasure of our Native American identities?
Researchers are discovering how early onset of type 2 diabetes can increase the risk of various forms of dementia later in life. Cleveland Clinic neurologist Dr. Damon Salzman says that over time, increased blood sugar appears to affect the brain's ability to function.
About 10 of us all through.
Troopers?
Yep.
Moments later, what turns into a caravan, it catches the toll collector off guard.
How many troopers altogether?
I think there's probably 13 vehicles total.
From there, a Whittier residence security video shows some of the same troopers knocking on doors inside Baggage Tower.
State troopers.